All right, chapter 6. So we have Daisy and Gatsby reunited after many years, but now we need to figure out, how is this going to work? Is it going to work? So chapter 6 starts off a little off the timeline of the book, where Nick is talking to us and he talks about how Gatsby has become so infamous that even reporters are coming and asking him about what kind of business he's in, about the mystery of Gatsby. And he interjects and tells us, the reader, the story of Gatsby. He says Gatsby told him this story at a later date, but he's going to put it in here so that we know. So, Gatsby's real name is James Gatz of North Dakota. So that is his legal name, and he changed it at the age of 17. And we're going to learn why in a second. So when he was 17, he meets someone named Dan Cody. And Dan Cody is an older rich man with a yacht, whom Jay Gatz sees in Lake Superior and kind of rows out to him and tells him that the wind might catch him and break him up in half an hour. So he's trying to help Dan Cody out. And once he meets Dan Cody and Dan Cody asks him his name, he immediately says Jay Gatsby. And from that point on, his name is Jay Gatsby. It says his imagination had never really accepted them as his parents at all. His parents are very poor and unsuccessful. And so in his mind, in his future mind of himself, he kind of leaves his parents out altogether. Jay Gatsby of West Egg, Long Island, sprang from this conception of himself, and it says he invented just the sort of Jay Gatsby that a 17-year-old boy would be likely to invent, and to this conception he was faithful to the end. So I want you to imagine, you're about 17 right now, when you think of success and rich, you probably think of the same kind of flashy, showy display of money that Gatsby has later in life. And he stays true to this to the end. And we have to remember there's a big difference in him and Daisy. Daisy's old money, and old money does not believe in being super flashy and gaudy and over the top with their money. So Jay Gatsby does not understand the world of Daisy, while Daisy cannot understand the world of Gatsby. And it even goes on to say his heart was in a constant turbulent riot. So as he's growing up, he's living life, but at night he'll lay awake and think about being rich and the day that he's successful and has all this money. And he constantly thinks about it. It says a universe of ineffable gaudiness spun itself out in his brain, while the clock ticked on the washstand and the moon soaked with wet light his tangled clothes upon the floor. Each night he added to the pattern of his fancies until drowsiness closed down upon some vivid scene with an oblivious embrace. Every night he just adds more and more of the things that he wants to his dream. He even goes to college, and he only stays there 2 weeks because when he gets there, they do not realize how great he is, and he's having to do janitor work to pay his way through, and he thinks that is below him, so he leaves college. And that is when he meets Dan Cody, an older man whom he works for. He ends up going out with him on his yacht for several years until Ella Kay, Dan Cody's girlfriend, comes on the boat one night, and a week later Dan Cody dies. Now, after he dies, a legacy of $25,000 was left to Jay Gatsby, but he never got it because Ella Kay, with some legal issues, she's the one that got all the money. Now, you can talk about maybe Ella Kay did something to Dan Cody. We don't know. Just know Gatsby did not get all the money. And this probably teaches him you have to work for your money. It's not going to just be handed to you. If you want if you want money and you want to keep it, you're going to have to work hard for it. So that is the story of Jay Gatsby, aka James Gatz, the poor farm kid from North Dakota. Now, After Daisy and Gatsby reunite, Nick doesn't see Gatsby for several weeks until one day he stops by, and lo and behold, Tom, Daisy's husband, is at Gatsby's house with some other people. And they kind of have an awkward conversation, and then Gatsby just kind of blurts out, "I know your wife," which is weird. And Tom responds, "That's so." This is making Tom suspicious of Gatsby now. So they kind of have a few conversations, they exchange some words. And then when Gatsby is going to grab his coat and hat, Tom informs Nick, "I may be old-fashioned in my ideas, but women run around too much these days to suit me," talking about how he's upset that Daisy knows Gatsby and Tom does not. Now, this is ironic because Tom is cheating on his wife very openly, and the woman he's cheating with, Myrtle, she's running around on her husband. So for Tom to say this is kind of hypocritical and pretty ironic as well. So they leave and end up going to dinner, and they end up leaving Gatsby, and he doesn't get to go to dinner. Now, Tom is apparently upset about Daisy's running around alone, and the following weekend, they both go to Gatsby's party. Neither of them have ever been to a Gatsby party, and this is their first time going to a Gatsby party. So while they are there, Gatsby's trying to introduce them to people, show them around, and they are basically saying, "We don't know anybody here," and they do not seem impressed with the type of people that are there. Remember, there's a lot of Hollywood people, very overly drunk people, and that's not what old money is about. Daisy and Tom don't enjoy this kind of company. So they kind of have a few conversations with other people, and then Tom decides that he's going to go hang out with some people across the room. And Daisy answers, "Go ahead, and if you want to take down any addresses, here's my little gold pencil." She looked around after a moment and told me the girl was common but pretty, and I knew that except for the half hour she'd been alone with Gatsby, she wasn't having a good time. So while at this party, Daisy, in the beginning, broke off and had some alone time with Gatsby. Now Tom has decided he's going to break off and go hang out with some girl that he's met at the party. And Daisy makes it known that she is aware of this. So we have husband and wife both going off and leaving each other. And Nick notices that Daisy is not having a good time. Then he talks about how part of it's his fault because the people they're hanging out with are overly drunk. And he goes on to say the rest offended her because it wasn't a gesture but an emotion. She was appalled by West Egg. Daisy is appalled by all things new money. This offends her. This whole party, this whole situation, how drunk these people are, this offends her. They're used to very quiet, subdued parties, and that's the kind of thing they like. So being in this environment, she is not okay with it and is not fun for her. And then Tom goes on about Gatsby. He's still stuck on it, and he's like, "Who is this Gatsby anyhow?" and accuses him of being a bootlegger. And Nick jumps in to Gatsby's defense, but Tom vows that he will figure out if Gatsby is in fact a bootlegger. Daisy has been told that he owns some drugstores, and that's how he has acquired his fortunes, but Tom thinks otherwise. Now, when Daisy and Tom leave, and it is much later and everybody from the party is gone, Gatsby tells Nick Daisy didn't like it. And Nick is trying to console him, but we know it was very obvious that Daisy did not like this party. Gatsby can't understand the difference between his money and her money and why she doesn't like this party, because to him, from 17 till present, His idea of success and money is huge parties and flashing money everywhere and spending a ton of money on fancy, gaudy things. He doesn't understand the prestige of an old money person and what it's like to have been born into money and your family's inherited money from generations and generations. And then Nick says he wanted nothing less of Daisy than that she should go to Tom and say, "I never loved you." After she had obliterated 3 years with that sentence, they would decide upon the more practical measures to be taken. One of them was that after she was free, they were to go to Louisville and be married from her house, just as if it were 5 years ago. Gatsby almost wants to erase the past 5 years and pick up right where they left off as 18, 19-year-olds. That is obviously quite impossible. Daisy's married now, so there's legal issues with a marriage. She has a kid with Tom. She's been with Tom for the past 3 years with no Gatsby in sight. So while Gatsby just wants everything to be like it was 5 years ago, he's ignoring how problematic that can be. And then Nick says, "You can't repeat the past." And he says, "Can't repeat the past? Why, of course you can. I'm going to fix everything just the way it was before," he said, nodding determinedly. "She'll see." So Gatsby thinks that he can recreate the past. And this is almost nearly impossible. Both of them have matured in very different ways. Daisy has an established life. He kind of has this established life going on. And that is chapter 6. So we have Daisy, who is kind of appalled by Gatsby's parties. And then we have Gatsby, who thinks he can recreate the past, and he's frustrated that Daisy did not like his party. So we have to wonder where we go from here. Is this whole thing broken off? Do they continue? Will they have a relationship? Will Daisy tell Tom she never loved him? Did she ever love him? Will she leave? Will she not? We will find out in chapter 7.